I can say ever since Everest, my life has started to do a massive transformation. And I believe I've been incredibly fortunate to have this beautiful journey of more doing a self-exploration and really, touching into, dealing with a lot of the different challenges that I've had. And I feel it has given me a different zest for life.
This is Life's Tough, Explorers Are Tougher, and I'm your host, Richard Weiss. Scratch the surface of an explorer and you'll find an adventure and a great story. This show is about their tales. This podcast is a proud supporter of the Explorers Club and the EC50 Initiative, 50 people changing the world that the world needs to know about. For more information, go to explorers.org. Perhaps the most frequent advice that I received growing up was, just be yourself. Well, imagine taking that advice and it could be dangerous or even harmful. Joining us today is Silvia Vasquez-Lavado. She is the first openly gay woman to climb the highest peaks on all 7 continents. Welcome to the show, Silvia. Good to see you again.
Hi, Richard. Good seeing you too. This is so great. Very, very nice seeing you.
So did you ever get that advice or hear that advice growing up, or at least hear it to other people? Just be yourself.
I heard it more in my 20s rather than in my teens. I wasn't at a very challenging, chaotic upbringing. So, but definitely, in my 20s already, when I was living here in the US, that was something, more of a stronger advice that was very inspiring.
So you were born in Peru, and tell me about growing up. Where did you grow up in Peru?
So I was born in Lima, Peru. And during the 80s, unfortunately, we were going through one of the worst time periods in our country's history. We had transitioned from a military government into a democratic one. And there was a lot of challenges at the time with the economy, hyperinflation. And then we had the birth of, or maybe the time of the terrorist movement. We had the Shining Path at first that really started in a small city, kind of more started more as a communist political movement, but then it became a terrorist movement. And then we also had a second one that was just as dangerous, called the Tupac Amaru movement. And so that unfortunately made it really challenging to have a safe society. There was constant threats, there were constant bombings, and it just took away, the safety that you feel growing up in any normal, regular city.
To draw a comparison, would it be like growing up in a war zone someplace, or was it that you just had the fear that something bad could happen to you at any point?
It seemed amazing, but I was always impressed how life kept going, and I've been on war-torn territories as well, visited them, but what really blew me away with a combination of poverty, of a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you would be home. Next thing, the government, the minister of economy will speak, and, the money will be devaluated, and, people will go nuts, and there will be lines to buy multiple things. And so, and then with the terrorist aspect, we will have constantly raids to make sure that you were not a terrorist. So you will be, I will be taking the bus from high school, like a public bus, and then we could get busted, and it was just, there was a lot of unsafety that didn't make it nice to grow up. It just had you on edge, and I think on the positive side, just makes you develop your street smarts. But definitely, it wasn't a place of a lot of encouragement. And plus at the time, the society was still quite patriarchal. Very one-sided. Women were not seen on their full potential. So it was very unique upbringings that in a way, I think have influenced how I look at the world now. I'm lucky that, I have these incredible opportunities.
But you started a non-for-profit called Courageous Girls, and
Yes.
that helps survivors of sexual abuse. I'm assuming that in your past at that point, that you had been a victim.
Yes, I actually, I mean, and to add to the top of it, of my upbringing, unfortunately, just like, 1 in 3 women around the world had to experience a very unfortunate period of sexual violence. And that added to all the uncertainty and insecurity, made it incredibly challenging. It just made me quite fearful. And it took away my innocence. It took away the joy, and it made life quite harsh, to the degree that, growing up, especially in my teens year, was incredibly self-destructive for me. And I mean, ultimately, when I told my parents, because unfortunately it was somebody who used to work within the family, they ended up working with psychologists, and the best advice was for me to leave the country. And so I was able to, and one of the things that I was good at, I channel, I believe, all my frustration, all my fears, into studying. So I was quite book smart, and I was able to come here with a scholarship. And so I arrived here in the States just when I turned 18 to kind of start a new life.
I would have to imagine, knowing what I know growing up in the United States, that when you come from that environment of terrorism, maybe sexual abuse, that 18-year-olds must have seemed very frivolous to you, or very carefree. I mean, you had to have seen that different.
Actually, well, you're going to laugh, but I ended up going to school in the heart of the Amish country in Pennsylvania.
What?
Yes. So out of the scholarships, my parents had a choice of universities, and my mom was in charge. And I think she fell in love with the photo of the Amish on the first, on the cover of the school application. So yeah, so that was my first exposure to the US. I mean, I imagine what you said. We were having the Cosby Show, we were having 90210, and you had this idea of America being, this frivolous, exciting at times, the difference, but definitely not when I went to school.
I did not know this or expect this, Silvia. I knew you came to the United States, but
Yes.
and I'm not making fun of the Amish people.
Not at all.
They
Yeah.
have a very lovely group, but I somehow don't see them being what you typically think of I'm not going to say normal community, a typical American community. So
Yeah.
were they aware of some of the obstacles that you had been through?
And at the time, not really. I thought that was, to me, and this is the beauty of looking at life, in when things get thrown to you, you can complain, or you can be mad, or you can just adapt. And I was incredibly grateful for the opportunity of being out of my country. And it was a period of adapting, I mean, it's still, we were close to a smaller city. This is in the heart of Lancaster County, which I'm not sure if you've ever
Beautiful
visited.
area. Yeah.
It's a beautiful area. And it just exposed me to a particular way of thinking. And this is the way that I look at stuff, and this is what has been beautifully translated, to my exploring, or my exploration, is that even though I come from a mentality, in Peru, we was honed down that we were conquered. The Spaniards came and conquered us. Coming to different places, I never go with that mentality. And instead of trying to impose my beliefs, I am more about respecting where I am, understanding the culture. And that is something that I have also translated into climbing, into my expeditions. I never say I've conquered anything. But yeah, I think to me it was just unique to adapt, to learn, and to, I joke that my experience living with the Amish country made it very variable when then I was sent to live abroad for about 4 years in Switzerland for work. And I was in a small town called, another small city in Bern. And I ended up living in a small village. So it all helped me eventually later in my life.
It's funny, having met you in person a couple times. I recall the first time I met you, it was in San Francisco. It was at an Explorers Club event. And I was speaking there as president of the Explorers Club.
Yes.
And you came up to me and you introduced yourself, and you told me that you were the first openly gay woman to climb all 7 summits. The vibe I actually got from you is, despite you coming from a tough environment, it was very open and friendly. You came across, and this is the God's honest truth. I thought, wow, what a great smile and what a warm, open person this is. That was my impression. So how is it that you come from such a tough environment that somehow you radiate this kind of warmth? There's got to be some place along the line that you made choices or there was a transformation.
I think it's been a transformation, and I want to be frank. I mean, I think even when we met, I was maybe about 8-9 months in my sobriety. I can say ever since Everest, my life has started to do a massive transformation. And I believe I've been incredibly fortunate to have this beautiful journey of more doing a self-exploration and really, touching into, dealing with a lot of the different challenges that I've had. And I feel it has given me a different zest for life. And it just makes me feel incredibly, grateful. And there's been a lot of different personal events that have happened that, it's allowed me to look at the glass, instead of half full or half empty. I mean, it's a personal attitude. And that is something that I love sharing with others. I mean, I think we definitely need more of that message. But, it's so funny that you said about the smile, because I just came across a photo of me in my teens. And I think for my family will know, I hated smiling. I was so self-conscious.
You have a great smile.
And it's one of the reasons that most of my photos, I'm always smiling, and I'm like, oh, that's right. And this photo just reminded me, because it was such a tormenting time that it was so painful to smile. So it's one of those things that, and now especially, just being on where I am personally, I mean, what else could I do? We just have to embrace life.
Well, you actually have a real reason to smile really big. And this has been in the news. You wrote a book called In the Shadow of the Mountain, and it is now being made into a movie where Selena Gomez is to play you in the movie. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I have a big smile as well as you're saying.
That is cool. I mean, how many people who aren't close to death, like in Hidden Figures, those poor women were 100 years old before they had a movie made out of them. You're a relatively young woman and you have a star playing you.
You know what? It's so funny, but the producer of Hidden Figures is my producer, Donna Gigliotti, who is an amazing woman. So it's kind of funny that you said that comparison. I am honored. I mean, completely something I had never dreamt in my life. And yet I am, I am excited to be able to bring a powerful, inspiring message. It's going to be its own journey. This is definitely out of all my crazy dreams. I mean, I think it's always been said at times when you hear people giving you life advice, imagine your life in a movie, or like live like the movie of your life. And now I am living that. So,
but Silvia, take yourself back to the 14-year-old Silvia who wouldn't smile. Mm-hmm. There would be no reason that in any recess of your brain that you would actually think you were going to have a movie made about your life, right? Life is stranger than fiction. So what is In the Shadow of the Mountain? I'm sure that's a metaphor for something.
Yes. And I think it's just the beauty of the very first time when I went to the base of Everest, which was a completely unexpected trip. I mean, I was never a climber. I mean, as we talked, I mean, I never grew up with a very, even unfortunately, the dynamic in my family was complicated. But there was never this aspect that, you should be able to be your best self or any of that. And I ended up, venturing to the base of Everest, as a result of a powerful meditation vision when I had enough in terms of, my drinking and my challenges in my late 20s. And I remember going, just on a very bare bones, not knowing what to expect. I only had about a week to make it back and forth to base camp. It takes about 12 to 13 days usually. And it was the second time. I remember the first day I was with a porter. We hiked from Lukla to Namche in just a one go. And there was something about like, let me see as far as I can get before I'm going to get altitude sickness.
That's about like 12 or 13 in Namche Bazaar, right?
Namche Bazaar. It's about like 13,000 feet, almost 14,000.
And that's a far walk from Lukla.
It's a far walk. And I just actually was even walking in the sense of feeling like, okay, well, let me just walk as fast. I felt I wasn't going to make it. I was going to hit with altitude. Let me just get as far as I can before we have to turn back. And so this, and I remember climbing the Namche, and that very first part of the trek, is very luscious, beautiful. You don't see, the rhododendron trees. I mean, you just don't see, you don't have that exposure. But on my second day, we remember leaving on the morning, we get out of Namche and we just take the turn, and all of a sudden, a beautiful sunny day, the Himalayas just hits you. And I will never, ever forget that experience. I mean, just that sensation. I was this tiny, tiny, tiny person and just walking among this grandiosity. And there was just this connection that I remember feeling for the first time in my life, that I was like, as a connection with the mountains, as if the mountains were being like, oh yeah, welcome, and we are here to protect you. And it's almost, the lyrical aspect of the book is like, it's almost as if the shadow of the mountain, just, my problems were just so small compared to the shadow of the mountain. And that was something that really stuck to me in terms of just, the beauty of what nature can bring.
Our mission is to empower the next generation of explorers. If you like this podcast, please recommend it to a friend and have them join the expedition.
I mean, and I remember I had this surge of energy, just being surrounded by the majestic of the Himalayas.
The Buddhist monasteries there.
Oh, yeah. I made it to the base of Everest in 4 days. I was like,
that's incredible, because that's at over 17,000 feet. And for us mere humans, mortals, I couldn't do it.
I was inspired. I mean, that was enough fuel for me to just, boom, that is what really awoke in my heart, that there was something magical, within these mountains. And that is what the journey has brought me here.
So when you get to the base camp of Everest, it's an interesting place because there's a lot of activity up there, and that you see people coming off the mountain, setting up higher camps. There's a big difference between being on the back of the stage, which I'll call base camp, and actually going over the Khumbu Ice Falls and up the mountain. So when you see people coming over looking pretty weathered or haggard, does that make you nervous? Think you want to do that?
I mean, at first when I did it, it was in the fall season. It was in October, so base camp was empty. But I'll tell you personally, when I went into my own expedition, when I arrived to the base of Everest, I left my bags and my tent. I was the first time I was getting this massive view and really understanding, oh my God, I'm going to be here for the next 6 weeks. And I remember looking at the Khumbu and trying to see in the back a little bit of Everest, and I freaked out. I almost fainted. I felt like there is no way I can do this.
Well, it's so massive. I mean, you look at, I've been there. It's massive. Yeah, so then massive. In 2006, you climb Kilimanjaro, and it seems like that is the gateway mountain for most seven summiters. They get a taste of altitude on Kilimanjaro, and then they think, well, I could do one or Elbrus. I could do. Elbrus, yeah. So of those seven summits, and I'll take Everest out of it for a second, which one did you enjoy the most? Which one did you think you liked the least?
It's almost like children. Sometimes it's hard to pick on each of them. I've had my very unique experience. I mean, I'll tell you, Denali took me 3 times. So, I was very lucky that all the rest of the mountains, I did it on my first try. I think Denali was possibly a very unique experience, and the way that it is structured as well. You don't have a lot of support. I mean, you have to carry everything on your own. But that was a very unique and some of the most beautiful, sightseeing in terms of once you get high up there was just powerful. I really enjoyed that. Carsten's Pyramid in the island of Papua in Indonesia was just magical. I got lost on my way out. We were walking back within the jungle, and I was with one of the assistant guides, and somehow we kind of were the last ones. And next thing, we take the wrong turn, and we are lost in the heart of the jungle. And that was it wasn't cool at the time. It was pretty scary. But ultimately, we managed to get found, and I can say now that was pretty cool.
So during all these climbs, again, you have made no bones about it. You're an openly gay woman.
Yes.
Were you openly gay on those climbs, or because each one of those places has cultural challenges,
Mhm.
and also mountaineering. Let's face it, it's a pretty high testosterone
Yes.
sport.
Yeah.
So what were the challenges there? Did you feel comfortable with that? Was it a little bit of a challenge?
Yeah, and actually, you know what? I've always been very private about my life. And especially in 2006, I was already living in Europe. I mean, what I do, having lived with so much fear, you tend to assess the situation, and you tend to develop certain bearings. So one of the things, and especially in some of these places, just as a woman, it's a danger itself. So, and on top of this, being a gay woman, so it's almost like, I become very protective, and I assess and I figure, okay, when does it feel safe to really, being open and sharing on your identity. I have to tell you, I mean, in Denali in 2012, I was on this expedition and I met, this amazing young man, Kason Crane, and he was openly, he was making a point of climbing the mountain as an openly gay man. He had like the biggest pink socks and carried this massive rainbow
And
flag.
he always put the rainbow flag on his tent. And
oh yeah, it was. I mean, he sometimes like carried it as a cape, and I think that was quite an inspiration. I mean, he allowed me to feel that okay, it's I need to be more embracing of my identity in the mountains. I mean, in the first couple of mountains prior to that, I was like, okay, on edge on it. But after seeing Kason, it just made me feel like, you know what? Let's push it. And of course, within the safety ranges.
I could see that happening in Alaska, maybe. You get some comments, and I'm sure even from my perspective as an openly heterosexual male, I'm sure I would have made jokes to my climbing partners about it.
Yeah.
But in other regions of the world, especially you go to North Africa, the Middle East, I'm not so sure I'd be running around with a cape.
Yes, and I think the more that we can voice, the more that we can show, the more representation that we can bring out. I mean, the more that this actually can improve, and that's a part of the responsibility of actually for me to mention that and the importance of sharing it. I mean, there's still, I mean, definitely within Africa. I've been in the Middle East as well, and it's just how we can bring a little bit of change to the environments and understanding for people. And even in all Latin America, I mean, it's still, it's pretty sexist. So
it's a difficult challenge because what I may have as values as an American, I'm going to speak now as an American, I go to some countries and I see women not being treated so well. Very difficult for me to impose my Western culture on them. And sometimes it really might have more of a negative effect upon whoever's situation is going on there. So I've always struggled. How do you become the change without sort of being imperialistic on your ideas?
It's complicated. I mean, how to change, you can rewrite history. And even in this country right now, we are found ourselves in a very unique intersection. But I believe, in many places, it's more about understanding and figuring out, okay, which organizations, who are the people, or what particular, what small local social change makers who are maybe doing the work. And for example, to your point, I remember visiting the Congo, which was, the DRC especially, which was, it's been quite war torn, and that was been in the middle of a civil war. And, there was this massive, issue with, femicides and the way that they were treating women. And I remember connecting with a local organization. There was a local man who actually was working with rehabilitating former child soldiers and young women who had been, locals, who had been on the streets. And he was kind of trying to help them through his own way of bringing them into dancing, into music. And that was very powerful because it showed me that sometimes it's not just even, the imperialistic or the big organizations that bring the change. It's more at the local level, that actually there are organizations, there are situations almost everywhere that those are the ones that are worth connecting and to be able to understand, okay, how can we, help solve some of these challenges?
So you have this film that I don't know when the release date is or even if they started shooting it yet, but you realize once a film comes out like that, the privacy of your life is
Mhm.
probably over. Have you thought about going forward, I always say the next act of your life, how you're going to take that sort of power of the media and harness it into something that makes not only you reach your full potential, but others around you?
I mean, if anything, my dream with the overall book, with the film, is the opportunity just to, first of all, bring light to the shame that, what many women, I mean, unfortunately, too many women have to put up with, and how we try to get silence, and just what it does. But, I am here to be a vehicle, a platform to just allow people to find their voice. And that is, what my commitment is for the next, several decades. And as long as I can be here, that and definitely combining my zest for exploration. I mean, I have been on the other side. I remember, when I was even trying to struggle with my own addiction and with my own issues. I mean, trying to attend conferences, trying to look out for mentors or just for the messaging. And so having been on that side, what a beautiful privilege and opportunity to now have this opportunity to talk to that version of me who was hurting, who was scared, who was ashamed, and being able to reach to that. And so that is one of the opportunities that I'm very grateful to have.
I find it very refreshing that you look at what was a very dark side of your life, or things that you wouldn't wish upon anybody, but you've used that as a vehicle to grow and to be powerful into who you are. And I think there's something to be learned by that. What is the advice that you now would give to that girl in that photo, you at age 14 or 15, who wasn't smiling?
I would tell her, I mean, and I don't know how this is going to come across, but I would tell her, first of all, you're not broken. You're intact. Your life is fully still. You can just absolutely do anything. And it is mostly like you are not alone. That would be number one, because that was possibly my biggest cloud, feeling that aspect that I was alone, that I'm the only one, and just telling her, like, you're not alone. Like, we are here. There's a lot of us who are here to help you, protect you. I think that would be my primary aspect, to tie, because that's unfortunately what creates, the challenge is the stigma, the fact that you feel you're the only one, that nobody else has done it. And it's just feeling that, no, if anything, we are an army here of so many of us ready to help you and support you. And if anything, it's just, just trust you're whole. And kind of, that would be one of the messages that I think I would tell her.
I know your nonprofit is called Courageous Girls, but I sort of see you as a courageous girl yourself. And I've said this to you before, but I'm so happy that you did introduce yourself to me 2 years ago. I don't know if that was a courageous act or not, but I feel that my life is richer for having met you.
Oh, Richard, you're so kind. And I'm trying to remember. That was 2009. That was 2019 when you were here. And I had just attended my first gala at the Explorers Club in New York. And it was possibly one of those experiences.
I think it was the other way around. I think we met first, and I met you with, I think it was the 50th anniversary of the Apollo astronauts. And you were there in New York. And I remember seeing you again and, speaking briefly, but that was a pretty awe-inspiring night. But you know what? You are one of those people that is part of that wonderful tapestry. So,
well, you're too kind. I was really, that was something that made me feel, first of all, that I had found my tribe. I used to joke that, we're all missing the same screw in the head. And it was just so refreshing and quite inspiring. And I have been, it's been such an honor being part of this organization. And I'm so looking forward to continue contributing more. I mean, I'm still one of the early, hasn't been too many years that I've been a member, but we have such a beautiful legacy to keep giving. And this, exploration, being in nature was what really helped me overcome so much adversity that, why not being able to bring this message worldwide?
So I'm happy to say that we're both members of the screw in the head loose tribe. But Silvia, thank you so much for being on Life's Tough, Explorers Are Tougher. I really enjoy speaking with you.
Richard, thank you so much for your time and for the invitation. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast. Now we have a little favor to ask. We'd really appreciate your support, so make sure to leave us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss another episode. See you out on the trail.